So yeah, disappointment at the weekend, but everything's still in your own hands.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, obviously, there's nobody hurting more than myself and my backroom staff and the players at the recent run of results. You know, it's been extremely disappointing, but like you said, it's still very much in our own hands, and we have to remain positive. We know how difficult the next two fixtures are going to be, but we've got an opportunity on Wednesday to put things right, and that's what we aim to do.
As you say, difficult two fixtures coming up. What do you want to take from them, or what do you need to take from them to secure European football?
Well, I don't think we've defended particularly well as a group in the last three fixtures, and hence the volume of goals that we've conceded in those games. I don't think it's ever been due to a lack of commitment or effort on the players' part. I think they're very much 100% committed to the cause. I just think on each day in the last three fixtures, I think we've been beaten by the better opponent, and sometimes that's hard to take, but that is the case. It's been a long, grueling season, and the players have been fantastic to put us in this position. I know sometimes in this game we can be very short-sighted, and we can just think about the recent events, but I tend to look back on the last 8-9 months in a really positive fashion. I don't think there's too many teams out there over the last 10 or 15 years have done what we've done in terms of being newly promoted into the Premiership and then to achieve top six at the same time. I think is a real positive for the group, and the fact that we're sitting here now with 2 games to go, and European football still very much in our own hands. We just have to go and take care of the business.
And I guess as the newly promoted team, if you'd said at the start of the season that you'd be chasing European football at this point in the season, you would absolutely have grabbed that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's I think it's a big achievement. I don't think it would have been what most people would have expected from us. We worked extremely hard to put ourselves in this position, and we don't want the season to end on a negative note. So that's why we're determined to put things right. We have to get back to basics. We've got to get back to being that team that we were in the majority of the campaign, of being hard to beat. We've had a number of clean sheets this season, and I think we just need to get back to doing that again the next couple of games. And it's always a good foundation to start from, and hopefully with a good couple of training sessions prior to Wednesday, that's what we'll be able to do.
Given that you were third in the league for a large part of the season, is it a bit of a disappointing end that you now find yourself sort of fighting for that fifth spot?
Well, I said a number of weeks ago, I think people tend to get greedy as the season goes on because of the position that we put ourselves in. Had we finished in the bottom half, and then undoubtedly we would have had a better chance of maybe winning more of those games. When you finish in the top half, you end up playing the better teams in the country, and that's what we found, particularly against Celtic and Hibs. The game on Saturday against St Mirren, I thought St Mirren done the basics better than we did. Really physical, really strong, athletic team, and they thoroughly deserved their win on the day. But we're not fighting a relegation battle. That's the main thing. It's certainly not doom and gloom around our camp, as much as obviously we sense the frustration and the negativity that's been coming our way in recent weeks, but we're very, very positive. We're trying to remain upbeat, as disappointed as we are with how recent weeks have went. It's still very much in our hands, and we'll do all we can to keep fighting and keep scrapping, and hopefully earn enough points to ensure that we do get European football next season.
And given you have had that successful season and third spot at one time, do you think there's a bit of fan expectation now and a bit of pressure on you as a result of that?
Yeah, I mean, look, the pressure is always there because we recognise that this is a big club. Historically, it's a big club. The supporters have been fantastic for us this year, turned out in great numbers. I think it's on average the most supporters that we've had through the gates at Tannadice for a real number of years. So that says something, that they've enjoyed what they've seen most of the season. But I don't think it would be a huge surprise to too many people if the top four remained as it is. The resources that the likes of Celtic and Rangers and even Hearts and Hibs, we haven't spent a single penny on a transfer fee this season, whereas the clubs who are sitting above us have spent millions. So I think we have to be realistic at times. I think it's important to be pragmatic in certain approaches, and that's where I try to remain. We've never got carried away. We've never believed that the job was done. We've always kept our feet on the ground and realised that we're going to be playing against some really difficult opponents, and we've got 2 massive games coming, and they're like cup finals, I suppose, and the players are very much up for it.
So trip to Ibrox, what are you expecting from this Rangers side that had their first win at home under Barry Ferguson at weekend against Aberdeen?
Well, yeah, that's a surprising stat in itself when you look at the quality of Rangers, that they've got in all areas of the pitch. But I thought they were very good yesterday. I watched the game, and they had real control in the first half, and then the second half, Barry has made a couple of changes at half time. Rangers seemed to add a bit more pace to their game, played forward a bit quicker, and ran out convincing winners in the end. So that is what they're capable of doing. No doubt they'll take a lot of confidence from that, so we have to be wary of that, but at the same time, we've got to look after ourselves and make sure that we do the basics better than what we have done in the last few weeks. We're going to have to defend the box at times, but we've also got to do a lot better on the ball when we have possession.
There's more for you to play for than there is for them. Does that work in your favour?
I don't believe that. I think every team and every player and every manager has got something to play for. Barry wants to put his name in the hat for the job on a permanent basis. I think there's players there at Rangers that are playing for contracts, whether it's at Ibrox or elsewhere, and we're no different. So yes, of course, we're still fighting for the European places. Rangers have pretty much secured second place, obviously, but there's always that element of personal pride at stake, and we want to try and go unbeaten in the next 2 games, and that's what we aim to do.
Has your attention turned to preparing for next season and looking at players you might want to bring in, or those you might want to move on?
Yeah, look, we've had conversations with players already, those who will be moving on, and obviously those who will be staying. There's never a good time to have those conversations. People often wonder why you don't wait till the summer, but at the same time, these players deserve a bit of honesty and a bit of transparency so that they can sort out their own futures. If that means they're moving on, then that's what we try to be fair with them, and the reaction from those players has been really, really positive. They've remained professional, they keep working hard, and they want to leave Dundee United with their head held high, and we appreciate for that. But in terms of us as a football club, we'll be no different to every other team out there. You don't just plan for the summer when May or June come around. You're planning all year round, and that's what we've been doing. We've identified some really good targets, and we'll work our way through the list over the next couple of months, and hopefully come the start of next season we've got a really strong competitive squad.
And you've been very reliant this season on bringing people in on loan. Will that likely to be the case again next season, or will you have a bigger budget to make some signings?
Well, I think European football would certainly help in terms of the finances and the budget, and that maybe would enable us to to go and spend a bit more money, but we would be sensible in our approach. We've worked hard over the last couple of years, the chief executive and the board of directors, to make the club a bit more sustainable, and we've managed to do that within budget and achieve top 6, and we'll aim to do the same thing again next season. But look, we've got a competitive budget to work with, and I think we've identified some really good targets that will come in within the constraints of that budget. Thank you.
You've talked about resources and squad size, etc. Does it make the job for you as Dundee United manager more difficult at this time of the season, when you've got injuries and not as big a squad perhaps as others, that you have to start looking at alternatives?
Look, it's not excuses when you start talking about those things. It's just the facts of the matter. I think we've probably used the least amount of players of any team in the league this season, just given how tight the squad is, and other teams have been able to spend more money. Hearts, I would argue, have got a considerably bigger budget than ourselves and finished in the bottom half of the table. Aberdeen and Hibs have spent serious money on transfer fees. We haven't been able to do that this season, but hopefully if we get European football, and with the way that the season ticket sales are going and everything, there's more money coming into the club now. Hopefully that will enable us in the future to be able to go and buy some really good talented players. Of course, money helps. You can sign a better quality of player. That obviously, the more budget that you've got to go and spend. So there's people working really hard behind the scenes to generate more income for the club, and that will certainly help in terms of the recruitment.
How important is the message for Wednesday night? Is it just another 90 minutes? It's something that in football anything can happen, and there's been a few curveballs this season with results. So is that important for the players to have that focus?
Yes, absolutely. We know that we'll be underdogs going into the game. That's the expectancy when you go to places like Ibrox, but we have to go there with a positive mindset. And teams have done it already this season. Went there and caused an upset. Either taking a draw or winning, and there's no reason why we can't do the same. But we have to make sure that we cut out the mistakes that we've made in recent weeks, and that's something that we're all well aware of. The players are honest enough to admit that at times in the last few weeks we haven't been good enough, but it's one final push now. Every team in the land is feeling the effects of a really long, grueling season, but it's a time for tough mindsets and strong mentalities, and going to a place like Ibrox, you have to stand up and be counted, and you have to believe that you're capable of going there and winning, and that's what we do.
At this point in the season, it's 3 hard games in a week. Is that a stretch for Dundee United?
No, not at all. It's the same for everybody, and we're not going to make any excuses. It's up to me as the manager to pick a team that's fresh enough to go and compete in the game on Wednesday night, and we'll think about Saturday after Wednesday night. But we're going to try and pick our best 11 of those players who are available, and I've got every confidence in whatever 11 I pick. It'll be good enough to go and get us a positive result.